1. And we are recording again. 2 guests who are no stranger to this show, Dr. Ken Alibek and Dr. Peter McCullough. Both of you have been on here several times and for some reason have the patience to keep coming back on my podcast. So for that, I am eternally grateful. This is episode 913 on Wednesday, September 14th, 5:11 p.m., 2022. And because of both of your fields of expertise, Dr. McCullough, you are the most published cardiorenal physician in world history. Dr. Alibek, you are currently working on autism. You were the first deputy director of biodefense in the former Soviet Union. Your book, Biohazard, is absolutely fascinating. I just read it for the second time again to prepare for this. I'll put that in the description. And Dr. McCullough's book, The Courage to Face COVID-19, will be in the description as well. And you two are, really at the tip of the spear in terms of your, just outright intelligence, your raw intelligence, work ethic, and medical wisdom. So as to have you both here, as I said in the emails, I wanted to discuss the origins of COVID-19 because, again, I don't know anything about it. I have a biology degree. That's the limitations, and I don't claim to know more about it. And I see Dr. Alibek smiling at me. I did pass organic chemistry, but Dr. McCullough, we just spoke earlier in the prior episode about some very clear engineering done. Could you maybe go right back over that, what we just did with George Webb about the 2015 work?
After the SARS-1 outbreak, remember SARS, sudden acute respiratory distress syndrome 1, that was about a 90-day outbreak, and it had about a 10% mortality rate. That virus, which looked like it had jumped from an animal to a human, I think got on the radar screen of leaders in many countries around the world. In the United States, leaders that dealt with biological threats. And the NIH division is called BARDA. The military division is called DARPA. But SARS got on the radar screen. And the NIH specifically funded research with SARS, the virus, the coronavirus. They funded research starting pretty much a few years after the SARS outbreak. It takes a year or two to get NIH funding. And a Chinese investigator was brought to University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston. They started the very first experiments of working with SARS in US laboratories. Then the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, led by Ralph Barrick, whose entire life work was with coronaviruses. He started publishing on them in the early 1990s. He became really the kingpin of NIH research-funded studies on SARS, or what's now called SARS-CoV-2. But in 2 pivotal papers where Vineet Menachery is the first author, Ralph Barrick is a senior author from UNC Chapel Hill, but also Harvard, a Swiss institute, and the Wuhan Institute of Virology. In these collaborative papers published in Nature Proceedings and the Proceedings of the New York Academy of Sciences, Tommy, in the title of the paper, it says the emergence of SARS-CoV-2 into human populations. So they were clearly anticipating a modified virus getting into human populations in these papers. You can look them up. You can search them on PubMed. You can type in a Google Scholar search and bring them right up, download them. They're published in 2 very good journals. I've summarized them on my Twitter feed. You can find them pretty readily.
Dr. Alibek, your thoughts or response to that?
My actually knowledge of coronavirus is going, I couldn't say I was working because I didn't work with coronavirus while in the Soviet Union, but my first experience was in 2003, 2004, when I was invited by the government of Singapore just to see what kind of preparedness should be developed against biological agents of different kinds, including SARS virus. And analyzing all this, a pattern of that epidemic development, of course, it was obvious that it wouldn't be very, I would say, huge because of high mortality. Usually, just it's high mortality viruses. They cause high level of death, let me say, with very rarely. Yeah. But of course, nobody could say it wouldn't be a big problem. But we had several discussions, and looks like in 2004 we had a few meetings, and we discussed the possibility of future epidemics, and everybody came to a conclusion in our meetings that we need to work on this in terms of developing vaccines or developing different types of defense, because there was no, I would say, guarantee that we wouldn't have a new epidemic in the future. And when first case, I'm not talking about MERS, which took place, it looks like it was 2012 or so, but it looks like it was already, I mean, this type of virus was already amongst human population, because we knew about some other viruses. And when first information about this virus came out, it was first, I do remember I read an article which was published, looks like it was in December of 2019, about some new cases. I started reading more about this, and some scientific information, some information coming from different places, different countries. And because my first degree was in epidemiology, and when I analyzed, let me say, first cases, how it was spreading, and for example, how the number of cases was increasing over time, because it was looks like it was mid-January of 2020. It was, I cannot say it was clear to me that it would be a pandemic, but it was a very high suspicion that we are just getting to a big problem. And it looks like sometime at the end of January, I gave an interview to Fox News, and I said, okay, guys, looks like we are heading towards some big epidemic. I don't remember what kind of wording I was using, but I said, okay, things will start getting better, but we, after we have some big problem. Why? Because I noticed that it was a kind of strange epidemic, actually, which started in the area where China had a BSL facility, specifically focused on studying coronavirus. At that time, I had no idea about what kind of research has been done, but but even this type of coincidence, location, a kind of strange discussion about the market, but if you see the epidemic, which starts, let me say, at the exact location of the city where such a facility is located, of course, the probability is 1 of a million, it will be such a coincidence. First and second, of course, it was obvious, nothing, just it's a kind of not obvious attempts to keep initial information under control. Then some kind of steps which were, I would say, epidemiologically kind of senseless. Just if you say about some contagiousness and necessity to quarantine people, and you declare sometime at the beginning of January and those steps at the end of January. Okay, forget any kind of, I would say, containment, because people are already everywhere.
Yeah.
And because it's some strange steps were showing about that it was not, to me, of course, we still cannot say whether it was deliberate spreading or just kind of accident, but it's clear that something was not clear, I would say, let me put it this way. And we still have a suspicion that the virus is coming from a particular facility.
Yeah.
Tommy, can I go open the door? And
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And be back. Okay.
Yes, sir. So, Dr. Alibek, I think said what a lot of us lay people like myself concluded early on, and what Jon Stewart so hilariously pointed out on Stephen Colbert's show several months ago. I think it was this year. What are the odds that this exact virus emerges in the same geographical location of this exact lab from a country who is known to have a lesser safety protocol? Dr. Alb or not Dr. Alex, excuse me, Dr. McCullough, could you maybe share your thoughts on that, just on the very surface level facts of this virus appearing in Wuhan, near the Wuhan BSL-4 lab that we were doing funding in, including the papers you just talked about? It seems the pieces are coming together.
Right. So the Menachery papers are important, and they're chronicled in Peter Bregan's book, COVID-19, the Global Predators. Bregan outlines 36 pandemic planning preparedness events, including these papers. Of the 36, 25 generated written documents like these papers. 6 of them were filmed. So without a doubt, SARS-CoV-2 and the engineered virus was in the Wuhan Institute of Virology in 2013, 2014, and 2015, without a doubt, because the papers indicate that's the case. The virus wasn't at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. It was actually in the lab. That's where the work was done. It says right in the papers. And it says, you know, it's poised for emergence. So the papers are saying it's in the lab in Wuhan, China, and it's poised for emergence. It's written, right? It's a title of the papers, Tommy. So it's in the lab. And then the issue of what happens in 2019, we hear different reports of patient 0 potentially being a lab worker. Maybe a test tube was dropped or broken, or a ventilation hood was violated in some way, and someone contracts SARS-CoV-2. Patient 0 is described to have someone from the lab, to have someone who died, but it's very plausible that person went to the fish market and then contaminated more people in the fish market. Then it went forward. But that first paper in Lancet that said that the virus jumped from an animal into a human in the fish market, that was completely implausible. We even knew from that first paper, 1/3 of the people never went to the fish market. And then multiple workers at the Wuhan Institute of Virology were fired and summarily dismissed, and all kinds of things happened, Tommy. I can tell you the virus was in the lab. This is not a point of dispute. The Barrick papers describe it fully engineered and developed in the lab. The question is, what happened with that very first case? And no doubt it was in the fish market, but it had to have come from the lab and vice versa, since it was there years before.
So I think that that brings us to the second step, is if we can reasonably conclude, and obviously we don't have a time machine, we can't go back and say beyond a reasonable doubt, although it seems to be pointing that way 99.99999%, but for the sake of having an open mind, we'll say we don't know for sure, but it probably was in the lab 2013, 2014, 2015. And Dr. Alibek, his past, I recommend everyone listening to this research Dr. Alibek and his expertise. Number 1 in the world with this in the Soviet Union, biopreparat. It then comes to the next question: is it's one thing if it's engineered. Okay, we do that in Dietrich, Belvoir. This is as old as time. Was it released intentionally? And that's something that I don't think you can necessarily find a smoking gun for, at least not biologically. How are you going to prove intent? I feel like that's maybe more for lawyers or for intelligence community spooks. But Dr. McCullough, are you comfortable with venturing your own opinion on that, or is that?
I think if you're just looking at all the behavioral signs, I think it was released by accident. I think it was a lab accident, Tommy.
Really?
Because even though there was a lot of planning for this threat and planning the countermeasures, the actual time of release and whether or not it was ever going to be intentionally released. Maybe this was just like any other threat. They were just getting ready for it. But there were so many signs that nobody was prepared for this. You know, the Chinese being caught flat-footed and having Chinese get sick, and then getting on airplanes and then having it spread around the world. It looked all the world like something that had just literally by accident spilled in a lab. It looked like a biosafety leak to me. And then the whole world was caught flat-footed, not enough masks, personal protective equipment, all kinds of crazy responses, flawed mathematical modeling. It was really clear that no one was really prepared for this to get outside the lab in Wuhan, China, maybe outside of Ralph Barrick and Vineet Menachery and Dr. Shingri Li. She's the bat lady. It's interesting. Ralph Barrick, who knows the most about coronaviruses probably in the entire United States or world, he should be on TV every night trying to help America get out of this mess. This guy is the quietest person in the world. You never hear from him. And no one thinks about interviewing him. If they're trying to interview him, they certainly don't say they've done so. It's so interesting.
Dr. Alibek, I don't know if you could hear us, but so, referring to what you said earlier about what are the odds of it being, emerging in that exact geographical location, and Dr. McCullough talking about the, I guess, biological fingerprints, not only research papers, but also the patented sections of the code. It all points towards it being engineered. The big question is was it released or was it leaked? And again, I'll say it, I don't know, short of a confession of a lab worker, I don't think we can know that. I think it's speculation. We don't have You're not gonna find a fingerprint that says this is the intentional release. It's something that probably forever will remain a mystery, but because you have a unique experience of everyone I've ever talked to, really of anyone in the world, and again, it's an opinion. Do you think it was released intentionally, or do you think that this was an accident and the rest is just chaos?
You know, first, let me say this. Many years ago, having discussions with different government officials, with different scientists, I was saying that the Soviet Union was already able to develop genetically modified bacterial viruses even in the late 80s. I mean, then what I heard, so many people said, okay, it's not true, it's not possible, and so on and so forth. Okay, but the knowledge was just with the development of synthetic biology, molecular biology, genetic engineering. Of course, we were coming closer and closer to the possibility of developing genetically modified viruses. It's not a problem any longer. Now the knowledge actually allows to develop completely novel viruses. Again, it's a possibility nowadays. And the question always, okay, where is the kind of threshold between kind of legitimate research or the research in the field of, we call it gain of function research, because this is, in my opinion, the biggest mistake people can make in terms of, because if you do such work, of course, you need to understand that if you develop this, okay, a probability of losing this virus or accidentally releasing this virus, let me say, into the environment, let me say, always exists. And especially just sometimes we say, okay, BSL-4 facility, they're quite, quite well protected. No, it's not true, because it's, just whatever we have, just the probability of releasing accidentally is always the case. We have several places, for example, we have ventilation systems in which, for example, the virus accidentally can come out. We have so-called solid waste sterilization systems in which, for example, if it's not, inactivated well, for example, the virus can go out. We have liquid waste sterilization inactivation facilities inside. It's another problem. But the most important possibility is a person working inside. Because when we work with some virus, we need to keep in mind that any virus infecting a person would take several days or weeks, let me say, just, without being still dormant. So we call this period so-called incubation period. And somebody who's working there may come out, for example, without even knowing that he or she was already infected. But this principle, and as far as I know, this facility didn't have a special facility for people who should be kept in quarantine for the time of the incubation period. And then after getting clear information about the person is not infected, is not producing any disease, the person could be released just to go outside. This is a general principle. You cannot do this type of work, for example, because of the probability of carrying the virus without even knowing that you are already infected is very, very high. In this case, I don't think that, for example, somebody who is working, the government of China, I don't think the government has done something on purpose, for example, to release this virus. But the probability of somebody being accidentally infected, we say, coming out and infecting others, this is a high probability.
You talk about that extensively in your book Biohazard about the small hospitals, really 10, 20 beds that were positive pressure. They were sealed inside, so if anyone was exposed, they could have full medical care, including, for however days, weeks, months for incubation periods. And it's to make sure, I think you talked about it like the Russian doll, building inside of a building, inside of a building, inside of a building.
Tommy, it's not necessarily should be exactly the case, but just if you work with some unknown viruses or some modified viruses, there are several principles we need to keep in mind. Okay, first, it's you shouldn't have in the facility which having a kind of access from outside and working with pathogenic viruses without 2-3 layers of protection. This is first. Second, you need to have systems for ventilation and positive pressure, then filtration system for exhaust and intake air, for example, with 2-3 layers of HEPA filters. Then, in terms of sterilization, you need to have central collectors to collect all liquids from facility, any kind, and inactivate it and just release it after you check that there is no virus, or even just kind of some DNA or RNA virus, let me say, is available. And what is absolutely essential, if you work with contagious virus, doesn't matter what kind of contagious virus you work with, because you must have a quarantine facility.
Yes.
Quarantine facility is not just isolation from the standpoint saying, oh, okay, just you should be treated. No, you finish your shift, for example, you work for 10 or 15 days. Okay, then as soon as you finish, you go to this quarantine facility, which is inside of the premises of this place. You stay there under observation, for example, for a short period of time, which would be obvious, for example, that for 2 weeks, for example, depending on the incubation period, that you are clear, you have no signs of infection, and after this, you should be released. You should be let going home. This is the principle. Otherwise, for example, if you do the work in the morning, then in the afternoon you're going home, we can say just be prepared for a possible infection. for possible epidemic.
Yeah, and it's I mean, if you go back to World War II, and I'm a little more, this is a little more on shaky ground for me, so I might be incorrect, but I believe even the German facilities under Dr. Bloma and Walter Schreiber, it was done in at very remote farm locations. You mentioned in your book, and something I am somewhat familiar with, Unit 731 under Shiro Ishii, that was out in the middle of nowhere. And you talk about early on in your book, Rebirth Island, where it's like nothing could even grow in the waters because of a fertilizer leak. So you didn't even have to worry about fish. It seems that that also is like a kind of prerequisite, is if you're going to do this, you basically have to be on the moon. I can honestly say I've never actually even Googled a picture of Wuhan, but it, I don't imagine it's a good idea to have it that close to an open air market. I just, so you almost wouldn't need for it to be intentional. It seems that it might organically get out because of a lack of precautions, whether the lack of the quarantine facility or just its proximity to, I mean, really not just the proximity to civilization. It seems like that's it. So again, it muddies the waters. You don't even need for it to be released intentionally. It kind of seems like it was doomed to fail.
Yeah, Tommy, I would agree with that. I've been to China 5 times myself. I've never been to Wuhan, but I can tell you, even the cities that we previously didn't know here in America, like Wuhan or Shenyang or what have you, these are large cities. Wuhan is 8.9 million people. It's way bigger than New York or Chicago. Very vertical, tons of skyscrapers. Very, very densely populated. It'd be impossible to try to organize this virology center because it had been there for a long time. And Stefan Bainzel, the billionaire CEO of bioMérieux, through this Chinese Communist Party, Jacques Chirac French arrangement, bioMérieux is the contractor. Bainzel was the architect of the biosecurity level 4 annex to the Wuhan lab. And it was built. And once it was built, Stefan Bainzel leaves bioMérieux in 2011 and he joins Moderna, a one-person company. How can a billionaire join a one-person company and then they work with the NIH on the patent for the Moderna vaccine? Now, in the Moderna versus Pfizer lawsuit, a lot of this is going to come out. When did they draw up the first drafts of the patent? How did all this come together? But I can tell you, when Bainzel leaves bioMérieux as a billionaire and joins a one-person company, the only thing he could have in his mind is there must be a pre-plan for Moderna to be richly capitalized and to start working with the Chinese on biotechnology development. It can be the only conclusion why that would happen. No one's questioned Bainzel. No one's interviewed him and asked him, what did he do from point A to point B, and why did he leave his billionaire position in France to join this one-person company in Cambridge? But these are the types of stories that are in a James Bond novels, and yet they're going on in real life right now. And Americans are avidly reading these books, trying to figure out what in the world's just happened.
It Yeah, money definitely seems to be the biggest culprit. Um to what Dr. Alibek was saying about it not being intentionally released, I guess and again, in my limited wisdom, I look at it more as, if you're gonna do it, you would go all the way, right? There's really we used nuclear weapons in August 1945 because we were the only ones that had them. You don't use nuclear weapons now because it's an assured death for everyone on the planet, including yourself. With biological weapons, it seems like if you're going to use them, you go all the way, be it Ebola or smallpox or whatever. I mean, you aerosolize them, or you go all the way knowing that you're also going to get it in turn.
Or you
This
do it, tell me, it makes sense to me. And let's just say that this was a Chinese Communist Party plot, that
Sure.
somehow the Chinese had commandeered the technology. They had it. They had the US with a lot of leverage saying, listen, you're working with a bioweapon in our lab. It's now our property. They've basically nationalized it. And let's just play out a science fiction movie that they wanted to destabilize the United States. You could see some Chinese scientist spilling a beaker of this stuff on a busy New York subway, and then jumping off the train, and then letting everybody get sick in the subways, and have this thing start out in New York City, and then
Sure.
find it around America, what have you, or do the same thing in London, or do it on a ferry boat in Sydney. You could see something like that. But the fact that the Wuhan Institute of Virology is there, Bain Zell was there building it. Then he joins with Moderna. Moderna writes the patent with the NIH. The NIH funds the research with Barrick. They publish that they've done the work in Wuhan. It just, honestly, it just looks like a US biological threat operation that was botched. It looks like there's a ton of human error in this whole thing. And so they try to rush forward these messenger RNA vaccines, which don't look too good from the beginning. And they said, listen, this is kind of our problem. We created it. We're going to create the solution to it, and we're going to gun with these vaccines. To me, that's a likely scenario.
Again, it's a question that we can't definitively answer, which is, for anybody watching this is wondering why I'm being so cautious tiptoeing around this, is because it can't be answered, and I don't want to pretend to know the answer. But seeing as how I know you both have obligations, I say we can run this for maybe another wrap at 5:50, 8 more minutes. So, Dr. Alibek, is there anything that you want to make a note of that I maybe haven't asked? Is there anything that we haven't considered about either the purpose and capability or ability for it to be engineered, and or the intent to release it? Was it an accident? Could you use it as a low level thing instead of as a extinction level event? Could you use it as a destabilization weapon? Or does it maybe just look like it and we're projecting our own theories onto it?
Uh,
I know I just asked
you know,
several
Tommy,
questions.
if I may, like to touch two, at least in my opinion, two very important topics, and maybe the third one, I'll answer your question, okay?
Okay.
If it's possible.
Yes, sir.
First, when I spent, and I'm quite experienced in this field, and when some people say, okay, the governments are doing something wrong, they have kind of bad ideas to develop something like this. I'm not a person who likes conspiracy theories.
Sure.
I mean, because it's just some people say, okay, the American government is doing something just to eliminate somebody. No, I don't like it, and I don't believe it. What we do have for any government, we have a kind of level of incompetence, just in a certain field. For example, if we have NIH and we have some scientists can do some work, and then we have a higher level, and on a higher level, let me say, scientists or managers, they know something but not much. And moving up, for example, we go to the point when, for example, whatever you tell to a government official, they wouldn't get it, because they are not experienced. They have no, knowledge of biology or sophisticated science and so on. In this case, I mean, just saying, okay, if somebody is preparing a proposal, saying, okay, this type of research should be done because of this possible threat, this is what actually happened with gain of function research, because we need to study whether, for example, a kind of enemy can develop a new weapon, and we need to prepare for this. It's not true. It's absolute mistake. because gain of function research should be prohibited. Absolutely. Because this type of things, it's not an attempt to develop a weapon. We say it's an attempt just to make money, to publish an article, become kind of famous. Okay, I'm the one who created, or I developed some established kind of new understanding of threat or something like this. From this point, it should be a law prohibiting this. Because in this case, now we have this level of understanding of virology, understanding of molecular biology, synthetic biology, that many things can be created. And there is no actual limitation at this point to create a kind of a virus that may say with a very high mortality, or maybe with low mortality, but a kind of high contagiousness, transmissibility. That's what actually happened to SARS causing COVID-19. This is the case first. In this case, it shouldn't be forgotten because we always react. Okay, the epidemic is going down. Okay, let's calm down. But after something is already settled, we need to analyze our steps, for example, just to prevent future problems. Okay. In this case, but from this first point, I'd like to get to the second point. In this case, if you notice, we are working in the field of developing vaccines. And these vaccines, it's a defense development at the end of the 18th century, more than 300 years ago. Okay? In this case, I would say close to 100. But since then, of course, I'm not saying anything against vaccines, but there is one downside in vaccine development, because we start developing vaccine when the actual infection is coming. Before the infection, we don't know what kind of vaccine we should develop, because there was some research done against CARS, the first coronavirus, because nobody was highly interested. It was a complete failure. Nothing new has been developed. And then we started developing new vaccines when, for example, we realized, okay, this COVID-19 is getting bigger and taking more and more lives. But one of the things I'd like to say, just at the end of 2020, I published a short article about, with the name of head of vaccine, that protection against the virus exists. I don't remember the title, and it was not about me. It was completely, I described how many research has been done in the field of preventing and treatment of viral infections. And the first research has been done in the United States in 1983. They showed, for example, how to prevent infection development. At that time, there was no SARS, but several groups of American scientists, they developed methods of protection using recently discovered interferons, and they showed perfect results. Then in 1986, there was a great research done in Australia, showing same things, okay? And just it's, then much research has been done in some other countries. I published several articles. They're not so sophisticated, but but they're showing, okay, guys, so-called non-specific defense is available. And in this case, in order, we need to give a kind of appreciation or kind of to the scientists who actually offered this. Because the knowledge was available already in 1983 in the United States. But I have no idea why. Either due to the companies who are interested in vaccine development, because it's a big business, as I realized. But at the same time, using this type of protection, even though now just if you take a look at new publications, we see that people already tested these approaches. They showed positive results. There were results already during the epidemic showing, for example, physicians first line, working in high-risk areas, having direct contacts with the patients having severe forms, they are protected by this method. There was no vaccine that time. It's not a kind of, alternative vaccine, but a number of publications from the 80s is showing that there is a principle to contain epidemics at early stages using this method. There is nothing big, because it's it's interesting because this, technology to make these products is perfectly, perfectly known. It's available. It's a matter of just applying. In this case, to me, I try to publish. Just if you try to publish something against a kind of mainstream, for the probability for you to publish is very, very low, or close to zero. Even just several attempts to publish op-eds, explaining that it's because to me it was really important because I didn't claim anything of my work, because the work done by good American scientists, good Australian scientists, from Great Britain, China, some other places. The knowledge is there. In this case, if a new infection is coming, okay, are we going to lose again 5, 10, 20 million people before we have a new vaccine? That's the case. This is the second point. In this case, some people could say, okay, the governments, they're corrupt, just because they don't do this. No, it's in my opinion, it's something different. It's a level of incompetence, because it's a time to establish scientific advisory groups, not a single person who is saying, okay, yes or no. It's abnormal.
Yeah.
And the third one, when we talk about the epidemics, this kind of discussion, maybe you don't know about what's happening between Ukraine and Russia now. From this point, Russians are accusing Ukrainians in developing and with a desire to deploy biological weapons. I know it's not true, absolutely zero, because Russia has a very powerful knowledge in designing biological weapons. They didn't destroy their capability. They have facilities not far from Moscow. They have facilities in the city of Vyatka. They have huge facilities. They have a facility close to in the area of Ural Mountains. They belong to the Ministry of Defense of Russia. And but for example, even at my time, I knew we could develop genetically modified viruses. In the end of 80s and the beginning of 90s. You can just in 30 years.
Yeah.
You can imagine that there is some new knowledge is already available, for sure.
Sure.
And how much this knowledge is available, and who is going to do this, either on purpose or accidentally, we don't know. But we need to work on this, because because here in the United States, scientists are so powerful, talking to them, but we are all we all have this very high ego. Okay, my science is better than yours.
Yeah.
Something of this type. No, just because from this point, we need to talk to each other. We need to share opinions. We need to, because the defense actually, in one or another form, is available. That's the case. And we shouldn't politicize the situation of, okay, Republicans are saying this and Democrats are saying something different, because we're talking about human lives.
Yeah.
And things could change for the better, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Alibek always has an incredible ability to bring a positive outlook to all of this. And I've kept you both longer than I said I would keep you. So we will wrap this up. Dr. Alibek, I'll send you an email about our future autism episodes. I think pick up from part 8, which we did, I think earlier this year.
Tommy, thank you very much. But you
Yes,
know,
sir.
just is it okay? Because now I'd like to have it not just a talk. I mean, a kind of dialogue or back and forth. I have presentations.
Yeah, let's do it.
And presentations, let me say, from everything, from a historical point, epidemiology of just and just research public done by a huge number of scientists across the world, let me say. And now we are very close. I mean, because hundreds or even thousands of scientists, they now claim, okay, guys, the etiology and pathogenesis of autism is completely different from what we see now. It's not, for example, to say, okay, that all science, let me say, it's really bad. No, it's good. But, you know, but we haven't made, let me say, kind of good conclusions based on the knowledge we already acquired. And this is what needs to be done. It's not kind of it's what I've done, kind of simple work. I mean, I just accumulated what has been done by hundreds or even thousands of scientists to show how much knowledge we already have and how can we treat, we can prevent it, we can treat it at early stages, and we can make currently autistic kids, let me say, neurotypical.
Absolutely, I would love to. I'll email you after this. We'll start setting all those up. Dr. Alibek, I will put the link to your book in the description. Dr. McCullough, I'll put the link to your book in the description, as well as your Twitter and website. Both of you, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for letting me coordinate this. I hope I didn't stumble my way through it too poorly. You both know just a little bit more about medicine than I do, so I hope I could keep up with you guys. And Dr. McCullough, I know I got to let you run, so we'll wrap this up.
I'm sorry, Dr. McCullough, it's very nice meeting you. Hopefully we'll have a chance to talk with Tommy sometime in the future again.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, both of you.
Bye-bye.
God bless. Take care, everybody.